name is Fred Werner, and I'm currently responsible for communications and membership for the standardization sector of ITU. ITU standing for the International Telecommunication Union. So basically ITU, it's the United Nations specialized agency for ICTs, and actually we're unique in that we have both 193 member states as our members, and we also have over 700 companies as members and 150 universities. And this is global, so it's a real multi-stakeholder platform where people can engage and share knowledge. And basically our work is divided into three areas. So basically we allocate spectrum and satellite orbits. That's taking care of the radio sector. We also develop technical standards that can allow the seamless interconnection of different networks and technologies. And we have a development sector which basically helps developing countries to bring up their ICT infrastructure. I'm coming from a standardization sector, and there we're organized into study groups. And one of our study groups is responsible for allocating international numbering resources, so IMSI ranges. And we have an IMSI range basically called the 901 code. So it's basically a countryless mobile code. So that would basically allow you to have a global SIM that's not linked to one country, and that could be used for doing cross-border IoT business or M2M business. So basically you're looking at MVNEs or MVNOs or utility companies or MNOs. We have lots of different types of companies approaching us for these 901 codes because it enables them to do cross-border IoT business without being tied to a single country. Well, basically, standards allow us to speak a common language, and without standards, things would simply not work. So if you look at, 95% of international traffic is conducted over fiber, and those are built on fiber standards developed by ITU. Another example is with internet traffic. About 80% of internet traffic is currently video. And that video was built using ITU compression standards. If you didn't have those standards, the size of video would just be too big, and all the bandwidth would be sucked up. At the same time, our standards have been used to increase internet speeds. So we've been able to increase copper speeds over 250 times since they started working on it, and fiber speeds about 64 times since they started using it. So these are just examples of ITU standards that play in different parts of the industry, whether it's with connectivity or with video or internet traffic. Those are good examples. Well, they don't specifically. At the moment, what I was saying before about study group 3, so that they could benefit by joining that group. So one thing I heard of the Congress is that MVNOs don't really have a voice as an industry, so they have challenges speaking to operators, negotiating with operators, speaking to regulators, and it just seems that they're a bit invisible at the moment. So if they were to join study group 3 and make contributions to, either to existing international agreements, or they could propose new international agreements or recommendations and become part of the process, then they'd actually be able to effectively engage with regulators and operators on more equal footing than they are at the moment. But of course, on a more practical sense, we have the the 901 codes, and that they can use to create the global SIM, and that's so if you're offering IoT services to IoT players, having that code would enable those IoT players to do cross-border business. Yeah, so it started last April, so we attended the World Congress, and there we did a first presentation on our global SIM on the 901 codes, and we were surprised by the amount of interest from the MVNOs and MVNEs in the audience who came up to us asking, can we learn more about these codes? How are they used? How can we get them? And since then we've actually had quite a few new applications for the codes. So we participated in the Singapore event as well, and here we are now in London. So that's 3 events in 1 year. And going beyond the codes, one thing we've been in tune with is the different challenges that MVNOs are facing regarding dealing with MNOs, dealing with regulators, and just the type of challenges that they're facing in the industry, but also the opportunities. So we're quite interested in bringing the MVNOs to the table. And we have study group 3, which is a study group on economic and policy issues. And that's exactly where they discuss these kind of topics. So at the table you would have different regulators from different countries, different governments, and you'd have private sector members, telecom operators, you'd have academics, all discussing economic and policy issues at the international level. And I think it would be really interesting if the MVNOs were represented at these discussions as well.